So good afternoon. I'm going to be giving this class about preparing ourselves to get the Torah and what that means and how it impacts our life day to day. And I want to say that I am giving this class in memory of my mother-in-law, Michal Bat Lina, which actually 9 years ago, literally at this time, she passed away. And we heard about it a couple of hours later. I remember just that when she passed away, Ralph and I went to a concert with a class to prepare for Shavuot, and we put our phones on silent. And there were no smartphones then, like the little black Nokias, and we forgot to turn it back on. The phones were still off. We drove home. We both left our phones downstairs and we went up to sleep. My mother-in-law was already not with us. They were trying to get in touch with us until my daughter Tawil had a brainstorm of calling a neighbor, and 2-3 o'clock in the morning, they knocked at our door. Anyway, so this was the time, and may this class be in her memory, because a lot of this class and what I'm going to say really comes from her Torah. Okay, so we are right before, we counted 49 days, and we are right before Shavuot. And we need to build our ability and strength to stand before Har Sinai and get the Torah. Because this coming Friday, when we're going to go to shul, we're going to hear Aseret HaDibrot, we are going to be reliving what we lived 3,500 years ago. We're going to have a Ma'amad Har Sinai in shul. So I want to tell anyone that's listening to the class, make it a point to go to shul, to get the Torah, to really see and believe that they are standing here and now in front of Har Sinai. And it's not something that happened 3,500 years ago. It's something that's happening now. It's happening. It's going to happen in 2 days. Now, why was the Torah chosen to be given to us? Why was it chosen to be given to the world at all? And if it was going to be given, why wasn't it given like to Adam Harishon? So God created the world and he created humanity, and he didn't give them Torah. And he thought that things will go in a positive way throughout the generations, and maybe even there would be no need for a Torah in the world. However, after 10 generations, people started to deteriorate and their behavior became extremely not moral and not caring, and no one was looking out for one another. Everyone was just looking for themselves, and God brought the flood and the world was destructed. The world started again from Noah, and then there was another destruction of Migdal Bavel, where God said, no, this isn't the kind of world I want, and he destroyed it. And at this point, he said, I don't want to continue in this way where humanity just rolls and tries to get along and it doesn't happen, and I need to destroy it, and then things need to start from the beginning. I am going to choose 2 special men, and I want to start a nation with one man, and the giving to this nation a way to live that humanity could look at and emulate will be the other man. The first man he saw was Abraham, and he chose him to start the nation. And the second person was Moshe, and Moshe was the one he chose to give the Torah. And he said, I'm going to take one nation, and they will be different from all the other nations. Why do I want to do that? Because Hashem wants to appear in this world. He wants to be known in this world. He wants for people to know that there's a ruler, there's a leader in this world. And we are those role models. We're the example for all the nations. And he said, I'm going to do it through one nation. And through this one nation, all of humanity will know that there's God in this world. So he gave Moshe the Torah and said, this Torah would make this nation most special. With what makes us special? What makes us special is the ability to live above nature, the ability to live in a world of kedusha, of holiness and tov and goodness. Through us living in holiness, in good and in goodness, right? God could appear in this world. What does it mean to live in a world above nature? What does it mean to live? When I say to live in a world above nature, it means to live in a world, a miraculous world. So first of all, before God gave us the Torah, he experimented. He decided to go to the other nations and ask them if they want to receive the Torah. This is a midrash. And when he approached them, they asked, what's written in it? What's written in it? And they heard what's written, and they said, no, this isn't for us. But even before he even told them what was written in it, the minute they asked what was written in it, he already nixed them. Because he went to them and he said, it says don't steal. And the nation that he said don't steal, like they said, how's one supposed to function that way? This is how we live in this world. We steal. Like, it makes logical sense to us to steal. So that's living in nature. People taking what they want, taking the strongest one, is able to capture whatever he wants. Like, living in nature means working 7 days a week. In humanity, like in different cultures, and till the Jews came around, everyone worked 7 days a week. It was considered not natural not to work. I mean, if anyone would tell them not to work, they'd say, why? Are you lazy? What's wrong? It's like a seventh of your life. You're stopping and doing nothing. But God came and he said, I want to take you to a different existence, to a miraculous existence. And I want you to live in this miraculous world. So when he came to us and he said, I want to give you the Torah, we didn't ask what is written there. Why didn't we ask what's written there? Because we trusted Hashem that whatever is written there is good for us. Because when he tells us, you will be living above nature, you'll be living in a miraculous way, we signed in for it. We decided to take it. And as I said, and now I'm going to more expand what it means to live in a miraculous plane. Okay. I want us to realize that when we live according to the Torah, right? The Torah, that we break our nature and live above nature. We live in a miraculous plane. What do I mean when I say when we live according to the Torah? Living according to the Torah means, I'm going to give an example. Like we read Megillat Ruth on Shavuot, and when we start reading Megillat Ruth, we hear about a man called Elimelech that takes his wife and 2 children, and he goes to Moab because there's a hunger in the land, and he's a very important person, and he doesn't want anyone to come knocking at his door and begging him for money and asking him for help. So he goes to a place called Moab. Now, the interesting thing about the place called Moab is that it is more south of Bethlehem, where he came from, and there's less rain and there's less abundance. So he wasn't going there to get more food. He was actually going there to stop people from coming over to him and asking him for help. Now, when you come to think of it, he was thinking in nature. He thought, I have hundreds of pounds of wheat, and now if people are going to come and ask me, and I'm going to give them, I'm going to have less than that. And that's like calculations in nature. He wasn't. So where did he go? He actually went to a place called Moab that definitely had no more rain than Israel did, but also Moab are the descendants of Lot and his daughters, where they lived in Sodom. And what was the midah of Sodom? How did Sodom function? Sodom function according to nature. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. I don't take from me. I'm not going to take from you. And each one we're going to have our own. And so Elimelech had that mindset, and that mindset is a mindset of a non-Jew, not of the Jewish people. Our mindset is, when we have, we'll give it, and we're going to give what we have now. And whenever we're going to need more, God is going to provide for more. I am not going to now control, the kind of abundance that God is going to give me. I know that everything is opened, and if I need it, it's going to be coming. So we so living above nature is to say, I'm gonna give. Oh, and the very interesting part is Bethlehem. When we read about it, it's a place that's filled with giving. When Ruth comes over there and she goes into the fields, there is the people keep the mitzvah of leaving wheat on the ground so that the poor people could come and pick, or leaving wheat on the four corners so that people who need will come and pick. Boaz is very concerned about making sure that Ruth is going to be well taken care of and not taken advantage of. And it's a place where Bethlehem is the house of bread, that they wanted to make sure that everyone has bread. Like they knew that as much as they're going to give, that's how much they're going to get. So the way Hashem gave us the Torah, many of the mitzvot over there, it's like he tells us, don't be envious of what your neighbor has, right? People might think being envious is the most natural thing. Like my eye roams and looks around and says, this is what they have, and this is what I have, and I want what they have, and why don't I have it? And why didn't I get it? But the Torah is saying, if you want to live above nature, I am giving you the 10 Commandments. I'm breaking it down in the Torah, and you're going to end up living a miraculous existence. Okay, now how is that? Last week, I gave an example, and I want to go deeper into this example. A father has a plate of cookies, right? And he gives one to his child, and his child says, no, I want 2 cookies, right? And now, why? And the father says, no, I just gave you 1 cookie. What is the father trying to teach his son? And why is the son asking for another cookie? The child wants another cookie because he looks with his eyes and he sees that he has 1. And in his imagination, in his dinionot, he's thinking to himself, but 2 is better than 1. And I want 2 because even though I have 1, when I have the 2, that's what's going to make me happier. That's what's going to make me happier, to have the 2. Now, the father is trying to teach him, you have 1 cookie, and I want you to know that the happiness is not in the cookie. The happiness is your ability to know and to be happy with what you have. How often do we look outside of ourselves and we say, if I only had this type of house, or this type of husband, or this type of, like, we have what we have, but we're just like that child that was given a cookie, and then we're asked, and then we want something else. We want more. We want more than what we have. And Hashem is trying to teach us, and his father is trying to, but God is trying to teach us, whatever you have in your life now is exact for you, is perfect for you. And with what you have is totally, with that, you could be happy. With what was given to you, you were given all the tools for your happy. So when you start looking at, something else, just like this child is looking at the other cookie, the father's trying to tell him, your happiness is going to come from this 1 cookie. It's not from your imagination. And what if I had this cookie? And what if I got a candy from this other person? And, what if I was able to just get more and more and more? It's the ability to realize that in what we have now, that is where our happiness is. And that is what we need to be grateful and satisfied with. So when a child asks for many things, it is very healthy for the child, and it's also very healthy for us when we are able to hear the word no, when we're able to hear our ability to be happy exists within what we have now. Now, as Jews, this goes in the opposite direction of the whole world. Because when the Father and when God tells us no, what is he really telling us, right? What is he really telling us? He's telling us life will not be better if you have a cookie. Life is as good as it gets right now. It's a way of thinking that's totally not Jewish. Because throughout the world, we're always given the messages, when you have more, you're happier. And when you have better, you're happier. And when you are, working very hard to just get this, that, and the other, all those things are going to make me happier. And our Father is saying happiness is not in the more. Happiness is not over there. It's exactly where we are now, and it's exactly in what we have. So anyone who wants more than what they have, it's like that child asking his father for the second candy. And it's everyone thinking that happiness is not here, it's there, it's away from me. It's the happiness is what I don't have, right? And that is considered living a non-Jewish way of life. Now, Hashem is also telling us, when will the joy come to our world? How are we going to be happy with this life? I tell you, on the one hand, be happy with what we have in the here and now. The here and now is exactly it's tailor-made for us. And how are we going to make ourselves happy? What is going to be bring happiness to our life? So what's going to bring happiness into my life is my ability at every given moment to add to this world from my life description. What does that mean? To add to this world from who I am. I am looking at myself and I'm saying, I am a mother. Okay, that is my description now. And I have many descriptions. My description is also a mother and a daughter and a sister and a wife and a teacher, and I could go on and on for my description. And I'm an aunt and a grandmother. And I need to decide for myself, what is my description currently? What do I want to function as now? Let's say I want to function as a wife now. So what can I add in this world from my description as a wife? And from this, I want to be able to be creative, trying to decide what I want to add. And that kind of creativity will be adding life energy to this world, and my happiness is going to come from that. In other words, I'm saying something that we very much know about, but I'm expanding on it. Instead of us thinking that our happiness is going to come from what else we can get, like I want to get the better. Someone was telling me I had this stroller, but I want to get the better stroller. The better stroller is going to, like, acquiring more or thinking that something is out there. The happiness really that we're going to have is going to be when from within us, we're able to describe to ourselves, in what kind of description do we want to be? I want to be, let's say, a description of a niece, right? Of a niece. As a niece, how do I bring happiness to myself? I want to be creative. I'm going to call up one of my aunts that I know that is going through a very difficult time, and I want to listen to her, and I want to hear what's happening with her, and I want to know how she's going to manage, and I want to give her a kind word. And that is adding more creativity and more joy to my life. And when I do that, I'm actually bringing God to this world, because God, his name is Tov, and God, his name is Kedusha. And when I do that, he brings his Kedusha down into the world. So when I say my description, let's say, is a Jew, right? I want to add more to this world. I want to add more Tov into this world. That's my description as a Jew, is someone that wants to add. And through that, I'm bringing more Tov and more Kedusha into this world. Where there's Tov, there's God. Where there's God, there's Kedusha. Now, when Hashem gave the 10 Commandments in this world, the world halted. It came to a stop. We, just like also when we are, the interesting part is that we counted 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuot, right? We counted 7 times 7, that's 49 days. And on that 7 of 7, that's when Hashem halted the world and he gave us the Torah. Just like on Shabbat, we stop, we get off the treadmill, we halt everything, and we feel the Kedusha of Shabbat. We feel how everyone in nature is continuously continuing, but we are putting a stop to it. Now, what happened when the Torah was given? On Shavuot, the world super stopped. It didn't only stop. It says that there was not a whisper heard in the world, that a bird that didn't chirp, that an animal, like no one even made. Everyone stopped and halted, and all of humanity heard the words, do not murder, do not do not bear false witness. Do not do not steal. Right? Everyone heard it. Now, does it seem normal that we wouldn't know something like that? Like, we know that we shouldn't be killing. We know we shouldn't be stealing. Does God need to stop the world to tell me something so apparent like that? But what Hashem was telling us is that when I think a negative thought about anyone, I am damaging. It's like I'm killing them because I'm damaging the world. I'm taking life's energy from this world. We are here to be able to add a good eye, a good heart. We're here to add good to the world, right? And what Hashem is telling us, just let go and start loving. Start loving. Relinquish relinquish looking at people in a critical way, in a judgmental way. Relinquish that, which is killing off their good energy. I want you to be able to start loving, right? And the complicated thing is that we resist. We tend to resist God's Torah. I want to give an example for that. An example. Wait. I want to give an example of what I mean. And it's a story that came up in class. So actually, it's a woman that comes to our class very frequently. And this time she came with her son who was never in our classes. He came and he said, I needed to talk to my mother's teacher. And he stood up and he said, I go to the army and I come home once a week from the army. And my mother does not greet me with joy. She's never happy. I want to have a connection with her, but when I see her like all down and not her face shining when I walk in and not smiling, I want to go to my commander in the army and tell him that I can't go home anymore and that the army needs to provide me with an apartment. But on the other hand, I really would like to have a connection with my mother. And the question was, how do we bring this mother to shine her face at this child? So the mother says that when the mother became religious and is more religious than the rest of the family, and she comes home, and when she looks at all her children, she sees one without kippah, she sees one that's not praying, she sees the dishes that people didn't do, and everything that she sees, she has something negative to say about it, on everything. Now, what does it mean when a person says something bad? Like when we say ra, when we what is it that the ra is being taken out of us? It's as if we're looking at the world that Hashem gave us. We're saying that this is bad, and it's like we're murdering the God-given soul that Hashem gave us, that He gave our family, by interpreting what we see as not positive, as not joyful, as not happy, as negative, right? And when Hashem says, don't kill, He's saying, don't kill that soul within that is filled with goodness, that is filled with wanting to do good, that is filled with ways to bring themselves to how do you say, ways to express themselves in this world. When we see the bad, it's like we're murdering that part of the soul. Like a mother walks in and her daughter's making rice, and the mother says, she never makes for me, she only makes for herself, she's so selfish, there's going to be nothing left for me. Now, what do we do when we make these types of interpretations? When we make these types of interpretations, we basically are murdering that child that stands across from us, that person that stands across from us. And Hashem is telling us, I want you to live above nature. I want you to live in a place that you could see things that are happening, but you will find the tov, you will find the kedusha, you will find the goodness in what you see. And that is going against our nature, because there's always it's something that a teacher of mine called Dennis Prager, he said, we have something ingrained in us that's called the missing child syndrome. We might see a beautiful ceiling that is beautifully tiled and mosaic, and there's one mosaic missing, and our eye is going to go to it. So what does that mean? We actually lost the whole beautiful picture because of that one tile. And Hashem wants us not to live with this missing tile syndrome. Now, there's an inclination to go ahead in our head, right? And Hashem is telling us there's an inclination to go ahead in our head. In other words, there's an inclination to say, if only I had this, I'm going to be happy. Or if only my child moves this way, I'm going to be happy. Or even going ahead in our head is like, let's say our child told us he's going to come home at 10 o'clock and he didn't come. And now I start running in my head. Why didn't he come? And what happened to him? Did he get hurt? Did he get into an accident? Et cetera, et cetera. Hashem is telling us that we are able to control our heads, so we will not go for a walk away from us, right? We're here to be happy. And we're here to be happy exactly with what we have now in this second. Controlling of our head is to be able to be in the minute that we are now and not to run away to the next minute, to what we're going to be doing next, to how our life is going to look next, to how we're going to make our life better next. Controlling our head is our ability to be in the here and now, right? And the father who gives his child the one cookie and he stays with that one cookie is telling his child, you can control your dinionot. You can realize that with this one cookie, happiness could come to your life. As we could realize that with anything that Hashem gave us, that is where our happiness lies. Now, in every reality, there are endless possibilities. In other words, like my child, it's 10 o'clock and he's late. So if we, with our demionot, hone in on one possibility, we have demolished ourselves. However, we need to realize that every single instant in our life and every experience that comes our way, there are endless possibilities. And this is what I mean by living above nature, by getting the Torah that is above nature. Every reality has endless possibilities. And the minute I open up the many options is the minute I'm able to connect to God. Because God there are endless possibilities in his world. And I'm going to give just an example that I've given a lot with my granddaughter. When we were given the diagnosis, my head definitely could have gone just one direction, and actually it could have been the worst direction of all. However, in order to set myself free, in order to connect to God, in order to be able to be more happy, I needed to entertain endless possibilities that could happen. And some of those endless possibilities was the disappearance of the growth, of her dancing in her bat mitzvah, of her ability to grow through other ways, of realizing that with God, anything is possible. Like I remember telling my friend Marjorie that there's this growth and it's cancer, and my granddaughter was constantly just eating formula, and which is number one ingredient in the formula is sugar, and plus they were adding more sugar into the formula because they wanted her to gain weight. And I told Marjorie, like, could you imagine that they're thinking this is going to heal the growth, the cancer in her brain. And she said, God can heal the growth through sugar. That is a possibility also. And those are the possibilities that is well opened to us. So in every reality that we have endless possibilities, and I need to realize that there isn't just one option in the world. There are many options. Okay. Every person who, hold on 1 minute. Okay, so the beautiful thing about it is that it's a very versatile way to see God. Okay, and the truth is, when we see something just in one dimension of one thing that could happen, at that point, God stops existing for us. Because it's as if we say, this is the one thing that I'm locked in on, and so there's no other way for him to come in. So at that point, when God in Aseret HaDibrot says, I am your God, there shouldn't be any other gods besides me, he's telling us, open yourself up to the various options that I could bring into your life. Okay. Now, what happens when something triggers us? And this is going to very much be connected. I know that there's been many ways that we have spoken about triggering, and now I want to speak about a specific Torah way with triggering. Okay, when something triggers us, I want us to know that we do not have a Torah, we do not have the proper Torah within our hearts, within our souls, within our minds, in order for us not to be triggered. And I want to give an example. So I want to open this up to something totally new, and that is when we feel triggered. I want us to be able to go back to our parents and grandparents and ask them, what is your Torah about this situation? And listen to what it is and realize that it's something that we're lacking. So what I want us to realize, and I'm going to reiterate something that I had said before, is that Matan Torah was the biggest event that happened in all of human history. And our parents and grandparents are actually a generation closer to Matan Torah than we are. But there's a wisdom that they have that we don't have. And therefore, we need to go back and see that wisdom. Now, that wisdom doesn't mean that our parents are telling us what to do, but it means that there's a core value in where we're triggered, that somehow we got it wrong and we're lacking the Torah, and we need to search the Torah of our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. I want to give an example. A woman walked into her 17-year-old daughter's room, and she sees her daughter playing on her phone for hours and hours. And she was asked, why is this bothering you, that your daughter's playing on her phone for hours and hours? And she said, my daughter started to learn how to drive, and then she needed to take the written test, and she failed it, and she decided to give up on it. And she's sitting and just playing with her phone, and it really triggers me. So this woman was asked, if you would have gone to your grandmother and tell her, my daughter failed the written test to get her driver's license, and she's now, instead of investing time learning more, she's on her phone for hours and hours, what would you tell her? What would the grandmother say? So this grandmother is not even alive anymore, but we could recreate our parents and grandparents in our head and know what their values were. This woman said, it's very interesting that you asked it, because when I go back to my grandmother, she always used to say that hardships are put in this world not to stop us, but for us to discover a better way. The hardships will be there to make us stronger, and we will handle it. Now, this is a Torah that is passed down from generation to generation. This is a package that's in us. And the minute we resist this wisdom, this Torah, we're actually resisting ourselves. So this mother's job was to go to her daughter and say, not to tell the daughter what to do, put down your phone, go learn, don't be lazy, not to tell her all these things. Tell her, what I remembered? I remembered something my grandmother used to say. My grandmother would say that when we go on our way, we will always have hardships. And the hardships are there not to stop us, but they're here to help us create a better way. And eventually we'll be able to handle it, right? I want us to be able to discover within ourselves different Torah, different wisdom from previous generations, especially in situations where we're triggered. Michal was saying, told us a story just about herself, that she went to help her daughter. Her daughter has 6 kids, and the daughter's husband went away for Miluim, is like from the army, you go away 1 month out of the year to keep up your training and your service. But her son-in-law is a very high-ranking officer in the army, so he goes for that 1 month, and he's not allowed to call home. He's only allowed to call home once in the whole 2 months, when the 2-week cutoff time comes before Shabbat. So she's alone with 6 children, and Michal went to help her. So when Michal came into the house, she started working, and she realized that she was really exhausted. And she said, she wants to lie down for like 10, 15 minutes, and then she'll wake up and have more energy and be able to help more. So she went into one of the bedrooms and she took off her shoes, and she said it was just a 10-minute nap. And as she went into the bed, she said very loud and clear, in my mind, I heard my mother saying, we never get into bed with our socks on. And she started struggling with it. She goes, yeah, but I'm just going to go in for 10 minutes. And she said, ignoring that Torah is ignoring the very essence of herself. She immediately took her socks off and went to lie down and went to lie down even for that 10 minutes. Because she's saying, what my mother is trying to tell me is, we have the inside world, which is the bed, and we have the outdoor world, which is my socks are coming from the outdoor world. And when we come into the inside world, we need it to be cleaner. We can't bring the outside world into the inside world. We need to take them off us and then go into the inside world and come into it with more cleanliness. So this is a Torah that her mother was trying to teach her, and it's a Torah that she needs to, like by incorporating it into herself, it creates a connection with Ma'amad Har Sinai, with the giving of the Torah, with the kind of wisdom that Hashem particularly needed her to have it. Now, if we want to accept the Torah, if we want to accept God's Torah, we need to remove from us things that are making us resist God's Torah, if we want to live above nature. I'm going to give an example of another two parents who resisted their parents' Torah, and when they were faced with it, they needed to have a paradigm change in order for it to change. But their name is Alon and Sarit, and both of them together went to the PTA meeting of their 8-year-old child, and the teacher gave them a whole list of, the child is weak in his studies, and he's not able to keep up, and he doesn't concentrate, and on and on. And they both heard the same thing. Now, Michal asked Sarit, what did you hear? So Sarit said, I heard that he's not trying enough. He's not trying enough. Now Michal asked her, how is your father? What kind of father did you have? And she said, my father was a very hard worker. He was out from dawn to dusk. We hardly saw him. And he believed in putting his all into everything that he did. And then Michal asked her, and what did you say about it in your head? She said, what I said about it in my head is that our father works so hard and it's coming at our expense. That's what she said about it. So her father's Torah is actually, whenever a Jew does anything, it is never at the expense of anything. When I'm out working and making a living, I'm out supporting you. I'm doing it for you. It's not coming at your expense. It's actually coming in order to sustain you. So this mother discovered about herself that she walks around in the world always in calculation. If my father is not here, that means I'm never going to see him. If this one is going to do that, then something else is going to happen. If I'm going to do the dishes, it's going to come at the expense of me sitting with my child. If I'm going to do the laundry, it's going to be, I'm not going to be able to cook. It's like a world that is very down here and in nature, where we're not lifted above realizing that nothing comes at the expense of anything. If I'm going to choose to do laundry, somehow there's going to still, the food is going to also happen. Like, things can happen together. No one is living at the expense of anyone. So what she learned about herself through her son is that she wants to get rid of all the calculations that she has in her head, that things are at the expense of anyone. And her husband was saying, he said, it also bothered me what they said about my son. Like, I heard that they're saying that my son is lazy. So Michal asked him, what kind of father did you have? And he said, well, you have to know about my father, that there's a road in Petach Tikva named for him, because at the start of in 1948, when the Jewish state was declared as a state, and Aliyah was happening, and thousands of people were trying to come into Israel. There was a huge lack of building and housing, and his father went into building and built so many houses in Petah Tikva that a street was named for him. And then Michal asked him, "And what do you say in your head? What did you say in your head about your father?" And he said, "I used to say about my father is, what are you running for all the time? Let's just sit and rest and enjoy this world." Now, his father's Torah, right? Both Alon and Sarit resisted their parents' Torah. They looked at their parents and they criticized them and they looked down on them and said, "We are not going to do what our parents do." So Alon has a huge problem in this world, and his problem is he never knows how to get himself going. He doesn't he sits around a lot and he doesn't know how to get. He's a carpenter and he doesn't know how to get himself moving in, and so through what they heard about this, about their son, they realized that there were Torah that they learned from their parents that they resisted. So one avodah that I want us to be able to do this Chag Shavuot, I want us to be able to go back in our head and think about things that we resisted, that we denied and negated of what our parents said, where we said, "I'm going to do the opposite." And I want us to switch it and to be able to delve into it and see what our parents' value was and to incorporate that value into our life. There was another story of a father. His name was Daniel, and he came from a family of 12 children in the Haredi world, and his parents got divorced, which is unheard of in the Haredi world. Especially with there is divorce in the Haredi world, but when a couple has 12 children, they don't get divorced. And he's been coming to the classes, and he said, "There's something that's been driving me crazy about my son." And Michal asked him, "What's driving you crazy?" And he said, I try to spend time with him, but he's always going on and on about himself. And I try to teach him things we drove and we saw a snake pass by our car. And I wanted to stop the car and show him the snake. But all of a sudden, my son kept on talking, "You think that's a big snake? In school, I saw something bigger and something better, and it was amazing and wild, and I would save the class." And the son doesn't allow him to get a word edgewise, and he's constantly telling him stories of what happened to him. And Michal asked him, "What do you call that?" And he said, I'm calling that he always feels like he has something better than what I have to tell him, or more than what I have to tell him. And when she delved deeper into it and she asked me, "How do you call it?" He says, "My child wants to make a good impression on me, just wants to always look good and make a good impression." And Michal asked him, "And what about you?" And he said, "Other than trying to make a good impression, I don't know how to do anything else. That's how I live my life." So Michal asked him, "And what did your father teach you about it?" He said, "My father was the most modest and tsanua and simple person in this world. But who's going to ever remember him? He was so modest, he was so low key. I feel like he's never going to be remembered by anyone." But this resisting of the way his father was and looking down at it and talking about it not in a positive way and not being able to take his father's value and incorporate it into himself, him and his son are developing in ways that is not going to strengthen their character. That's not going to allow them to live in a harmonious, happy way in this world. He has to take the tzniut, the modesty, the simplicity that his father always showed, and that's something he needs to incorporate into himself in order for them to live above nature in God's world and to incorporate God's Torah within them. There was another mother in class that her child, that she said that she doesn't like to go in the kitchen and cook for her children. And when she does go into the kitchen, so she makes many different dishes, one for everyone of what the person likes. And it's so exhausting that she doesn't enjoy, and she has a lot of children, and there's no food in the house. There's if a child wants food, he needs to make himself. And when she makes, she'll make one for everyone. And when they went back to her, it turns out that her mother made one pot for everyone, and she not necessarily always liked the pot. And she said, when I'm going to be a mother, I'm going to make everyone what they like. But now, when the mother made that one pot, what was she trying to teach? She was trying to teach her that I can make one pot on the table, and that could sustain everyone. And the happiness doesn't come from the pot of food, but it comes from our togetherness and our knowing that what we eat is not the most important thing, but our togetherness is the most important thing. Like the pot is an excuse to make everyone come around the table, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to have his own food and it has to be what everyone loves. We could all learn to love the same thing. We could choose what we like. And her resisting her mother's Torah and wanting to do the opposite was not sustainable for her. She couldn't do it. It made her not like cooking. Her kids never sat together at the table. Whenever she did make something from everyone, it was like she was enslaved to them. When I feel like I'm going awry, when I feel like things are, when I feel like I'm triggered and I'm awry and I'm adrift and I'm lost, it means that I don't have a Torah in me, right? It means that I don't have the Torah in me. Like this woman, when she was telling her, when you're trying to, cook for every single one of your children, you're trying to placate everyone. Someone who's trying to placate everyone is living without a Torah. We're not here to placate everyone, right? First of all, a woman starts by making food for her husband, right? This is a Torah. Like we start by making food for our husband, and then everyone is going to end up liking what our husband likes, right? That's our description as a wife, making sure that our husband has what he likes. Now, we need to constantly also, when we want to do something, when we want to take an action, we need to, in our heads, think, what is the Torah that is guiding us? What is the Torah that is guiding us? But before we take an action, we're going to think, what is the Torah behind it? Because when we're holding on to the Torah, then we can't go wrong. Then we're not going to be triggered. So this coming Shavuot, I want to wrap it up now. This coming Shavuot, I want us to realize that we as Jews are living above nature. Living above nature means living in this moment, in the here and now. In what we have here and now, this is what's good. This is what God invited for us. And we're not going to look outside and just see, everything else outside and feel that we'll be happy only when we have it. We're going to decide to be happy with what we have, because that's what God invited for us here now. We're going to realize that in order for us to be happy, it's going to be more about giving anything that's good within us in all our various descriptions. It's giving over into the world. And it's also wanting to discover our ancestral Torah and allowing that to come to us, to learn from it, and to help us from all the different ways that we become confused and mixed up in this world. So everyone, go and hear the Torah being read on Friday. I want you to feel when you're hearing it being read that you're standing at Har Sinai. I want you to know that God gave us the Torah and it passed down to us through our great-grandparents, grandparents, and parents. We want to pass it on to our children, and we want to realize and we want to reach back when anything happens that is making us feel uncertain, unsure, and triggered. We want to reach back and see what would be the Torah that we would get from our ancestors, and in that way, we connect to Hashem.